The bullet that shattered the window of the general store in Sweetwater, Texas, missed Eleanor Hartley's head by 3 inches, and in that moment, she knew her past had finally caught up with her. It was July of 1878, and the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty streets of this small town nestled in the heart of cattle country. Eleanor had been living here for 8 months now, working as a seamstress and keeping to herself, always keeping to herself. The glass exploded inward, sending shards across the bolts of fabric she had been examining, and her body moved on instinct, dropping low behind the counter before her mind even registered the danger. The second shot came immediately after, splintering the wooden post where she had just been standing. "Everyone down," shouted Marshal Peters, but Eleanor was already moving toward the back door, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had practiced this escape route in her mind 100 times, knowing that one day she might need it. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with the door latch, and then she was outside in the alley, the heat hitting her like a physical force. She ran without thinking, her skirts hiked up in a most unladylike fashion, her dark hair coming loose from its pins. The streets of Sweetwater blurred past her as she made for the livery stable where she kept her horse saddled and ready. Always ready. That was how she had survived the past 3 years since she fled Missouri, since the night everything changed, since the night she watched them kill her brother. Eleanor burst through the stable doors, startling old Timothy who dozed in the corner. "Miss Eleanor, what in tarnation?" "No time," she gasped, already moving toward her mare, a sturdy bay named Juniper. Her fingers worked quickly, checking the saddle, the bedroll, the saddlebags she kept perpetually packed. Timothy had always thought her eccentric for keeping her horse this way, but he had never asked questions, and she had never offered explanations. Outside, she could hear shouting, the sounds of confusion and alarm spreading through town. She led Juniper out through the back entrance, mounting quickly and urging the mare into a gallop before they even cleared the stable. The town fell away behind her as she rode hard toward the open country, toward the vast expanse of Texas prairie that stretched endlessly in all directions. She did not know where she was going, only that she had to keep moving. It was always the same. Find a town, settle in, start to believe maybe this time she could stay, and then they would find her. The Garrett brothers. They had sworn they would hunt her to the ends of the earth for what she had witnessed, for what she knew, and they were men who kept their promises. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon when Eleanor finally slowed Juniper to a walk. The mare was lathered with sweat, her sides heaving, and Eleanor felt a pang of guilt for pushing her so hard. She dismounted and led the horse on foot, looking for any sign of water or shelter. The landscape here was unforgiving, all scrub brush and hard, packed earth, with rocky outcroppings rising like ancient sentinels against the burning sky. She had been so careful in Sweetwater. She had changed her name, altered her appearance, never spoke of her past. She had even started to make friends, something she had not allowed herself in the previous towns. Mrs. Chen at the boarding house had been teaching her to cook Chinese dishes, and little Amy Peterson had begged her mother to let Miss Eleanor make her Sunday dress. For 8 months, Eleanor had let herself imagine a different life, a normal life. Now that illusion was shattered like the window glass, and she was running again. The sound of hoofbeats behind her made Eleanor's blood turn to ice. She spun around, her hand instinctively going to the small pistol she kept hidden in the folds of her skirt. A rider was approaching, silhouetted against the setting sun, and her first thought was that the Garretts had caught up with her already. But as the figure drew closer, she realized it was only one man, and he was not riding with the aggressive speed of a pursuer. He was cantering steadily, purposefully, as if he had been following her trail but was in no particular hurry. Eleanor raised her pistol, her hand surprisingly steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "That is close enough," she called out when the rider was about 30 yards away. The man reined in his horse immediately, raising both hands to show they were empty. "Easy there, miss." I am not looking for trouble. Then you should turn around and ride back the way you came. Cannot do that, I am afraid. His voice was calm, unhurried, with a slight drawl that marked him as a Texan born and bred. Name is Cole Jameson. I am a ranch foreman from the Double J spread about 20 miles south of Sweetwater. I was in town buying supplies when the shooting started, saw you ride out like the devil himself was on your heels. That is none of your concern. Maybe not, Cole agreed, still keeping his hands visible. But I also saw the men who were doing the shooting. Recognized one of them, Frank Garrett. He is wanted in 3 territories for murder, robbery, and worse. If he is after you, miss, then you are in more danger than you might realize. Eleanor's pistol did not waver, but her mind was racing. How much did this stranger know? What did he want? I can take care of myself. I can see that, Cole said, and there was a hint of admiration in his voice. But night is coming on, and this is rough country. There are coyotes, rattlesnakes, and worse. The nearest town is 30 miles in any direction. You are going to need water soon, and unless I miss my guess, your horse is about done in. As if to confirm his words, Juniper lowered her head and snorted wearily. Eleanor felt a surge of frustration and helplessness. She hated that he was right. She hated that she needed help. She had learned the hard way that accepting help meant letting people get close, and letting people get close meant they could get hurt. "Why would you help me?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. "You do not know me. You do not know anything about me." Cole slowly lowered his hands, resting them on his saddle horn. The fading light made it hard to see his features clearly, but she could make out a strong jaw, a straight nose, and eyes that seemed to be studying her with equal parts curiosity and concern. "You are right, I do not know you. But I know Frank Garrett, and I know that any enemy of his cannot be all bad. Besides, my mother raised me to help folks in need, and you, miss, are definitely in need." Eleanor wanted to argue, wanted to send him away and continue on alone as she had always done. But Juniper was exhausted, the sun was setting fast, and she had no idea where the nearest water source might be. She had fled Sweetwater with nothing but what was in her saddlebags, and while she had learned to be prepared, she was not prepared for an extended journey through the wilderness. "I will not go back to Sweetwater," she said firmly. "Did not ask you to, but there is a line shack about 5 miles west of here. It belongs to the Double J. We use it during roundup season, but it is empty now. There is a well, a stove, and 4 walls to keep out the worst of the night. You and your horse can rest there, and in the morning, you can decide where you want to go next." Eleanor studied him for a long moment, trying to read his intentions. The problem with running for 3 years was that it made you suspicious of everyone, made you see threats in every kindness. But she was also practical enough to know when she had no better options. "Fine," she said, lowering her pistol but not putting it away. "But you keep your distance, Mr. Jameson. I mean what I say about being able to take care of myself." "Yes, ma'am, I believe you." There was a hint of a smile in his voice that made Eleanor bristle with irritation. But he turned his horse and began riding west without another word. They traveled in silence as the sun sank below the horizon, and the sky turned from gold to purple to deep blue. The temperature dropped rapidly, as it always did in this part of Texas, and Eleanor found herself shivering in her thin cotton dress. She had a shawl in her saddlebags, but she did not want to show any sign of weakness in front of this stranger, so she endured the cold and kept her eyes fixed on his back, alert for any sign of treachery. The line shack appeared as a dark shape against the darkening landscape, a small, sturdy structure built of rough-hewn logs with a stone chimney rising from one end. Cole dismounted and opened the door, disappearing inside for a moment before she saw the flare of a match and then the warm glow of lamplight. "All clear," he called out. "Bring your horse around to the side. There is a lean-to for shelter and the well is right there." Eleanor did as he instructed, still keeping one hand near her pistol. But Cole made no threatening moves. He drew water from the well and filled a trough for the horses, then hauled up more water for them to drink and wash with. He worked with the efficient movements of a man accustomed to taking care of himself in rough country. And despite her wariness, Eleanor found herself watching him with a grudging respect. In the lamplight, she could finally see him clearly. He was tall, probably in his late 20s, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly at the collar. His clothes were worn but well-maintained, the clothes of a working cowboy, and he moved with an easy grace that suggested strength held in check. His eyes, she noticed, were a deep brown, almost black in the dim light, and when they met hers, she felt an unexpected jolt of something she could not quite name. "There is beans and salt pork in the stores," Cole said, breaking the spell. "Not fancy, but it will fill your belly. I can get a fire going if you would like hot food." "I can manage," Eleanor said, more curtly than she intended. She was not accustomed to being cared for, and it made her uncomfortable. "I am sure you can," Cole replied mildly, "but there is no shame in accepting help, miss. We are not enemies here. You do not know that." He paused in the act of unsaddling his horse and looked at her directly. "You are running from Frank Garrett and his brother. That makes us allies, whether you want to admit it or not. Those men are poison. They have killed, stolen, and destroyed their way across half the territory. If you have somehow crossed them, then I am on your side." "You do not understand," Eleanor said, and to her horror, she felt her voice crack slightly. The exhaustion and fear of the day were catching up with her, threatening to break through the wall she had built around her emotions. "Everyone who tries to help me ends up hurt. Everyone. I will not have your blood on my conscience, Mr. Jameson." Cole was quiet for a moment, his hands stilling on the saddle. Then he said very gently, "What is your name?" "Your real name?" Eleanor hesitated. She had given so many false names over the past 3 years that sometimes she almost forgot her real one. But there was something about this man, this stranger who had followed her into the wilderness for no reason other than simple decency, that made her want to tell the truth. "Eleanor," she said softly. "Eleanor Hartley." "Well, Miss Hartley, I appreciate your concern for my welfare, but I am a grown man and I make my own choices. I chose to follow you out here, and I will choose to help you find somewhere safe, if you will let me. That is my decision to make, not yours." There was a firmness in his voice that brooked no argument, and Eleanor found herself nodding before she quite realized what she was doing. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are welcome. Now, why do you not go inside and sit down while I see to the horses? You look like you are about to fall over." Eleanor did not have the energy to argue. She made her way into the lined shack, which was small but surprisingly neat. There was a cot against one wall, a rough table with 2 chairs, a potbelly stove, and shelves holding various supplies. It was Spartan but functional, and right now it looked like paradise to her weary eyes. She sank down onto one of the chairs and let her head drop into her hands. The events of the day washed over her, and she felt the familiar mixture of fear and resignation that had become her constant companions. How had they found her this time? She had been so careful. She had used a different name, had told everyone she was from Kansas, had changed everything about her appearance and manner. But somehow the Garrett brothers always found her. Cole came in carrying both their saddlebags, which he set by the door before moving to the stove. He worked quickly and efficiently, building a fire and setting a pot of coffee on to boil. The smell filled the small space, rich and comforting, and Eleanor felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "How long have they been chasing you?" Cole asked as he opened a tin of beans and emptied it into a pan. Eleanor was silent for so long that she thought he might repeat the question, but he just waited patiently, stirring the beans as they heated. Finally, she said, 3 years. Ever since the night I watched them kill my brother." Cole's hand paused for just a moment, then continued stirring. "I am sorry for your loss. His name was Thomas. He was 22 years old, just a boy, really. He worked as a bank clerk in Jefferson City, Missouri. One night, he stayed late to finish some paperwork, and he discovered that someone had been embezzling money from the bank. Thousands of dollars, stolen over the course of 2 years. Eleanor's voice was flat, emotionless, as if she were recounting someone else's story. He was so excited when he came home that night. He thought he had solved this great mystery. He thought the bank president would be so grateful. But the bank president was in on it, Cole said quietly. Yes, Horace Brennan. He and the Garrett brothers had been working together, using the bank to hide their stolen money to make it look legitimate. Thomas was going to go to the marshal the next morning. But that night, while he slept, they came for him. Eleanor closed her eyes against the memory, but it played out behind her eyelids as vividly as if it were happening again. I heard the noise. I came out of my room and saw them, 3 men standing over my brother's body. Frank Garrett looked up and saw me, and I knew in that moment that I was going to die too. But you did not. I ran. I climbed out my window and I ran through the streets in my nightgown like a madwoman. I ran all the way to the marshal's office and I told him everything. They arrested Brennan and one of the Garrett brothers, Daniel, but Frank and Lucas got away. At the trial, I testified against them. I told the jury everything I had seen. Daniel Garrett and Horace Brennan were both hanged for their crimes. Cole poured coffee into 2 tin cups and brought one to Eleanor. She wrapped her hands around it, grateful for the warmth. That took courage, he said. It took stupidity, Eleanor replied bitterly. I thought once they were hanged, it would be over. I thought justice had been served and I could go back to my life. But Frank and Lucas Garrett had other ideas. They started hunting me. The first attempt was in Jefferson City, just 3 months after the execution. They broke into my house in the middle of the night. I only survived because my neighbor, Mr. Peterson, heard the commotion and came over with his shotgun. He was killed for his trouble. That was not your fault, was it not? He died protecting me. After that, I ran. I have been running ever since. Every town I settle in, they eventually find me. I do not know how they do it, but they always do. And people always try to help me, and people always end up dead. So you see, Mr. Jameson, you should ride away from me as fast as you can, because associating with me is a death sentence. Cole sat down across from her, his own coffee cup cradled in his large hands. His expression was thoughtful, and when he spoke, his voice was measured and calm. You know what I think, Miss Hartley? I think you have been carrying the weight of other people's deaths for so long that you have forgotten something important. You did not kill your brother, you did not kill your neighbor. The Garrett brothers did. They are the murderers, not you. You are just trying to survive. Survival seems to require other people to die in my place. Or maybe, Cole said, leaning forward slightly, maybe it is time to stop running and face this thing head on. Eleanor looked at him as if he had grown a second head. Face them. Face 2 killers who have sworn to murder me. That is your solution, not alone. With help. Real help, not just one man with a shotgun or a small town marshal. The Texas Rangers have been looking for the Garrett brothers for years. They are wanted for crimes in multiple states and territories. If we could get word to them, get them involved, maybe we could end this once and for all. And how exactly do you propose we do that? Send them a telegram. Dear Rangers, please come catch these men who are trying to kill me. They will be long gone before any help arrives, and I will be dead. Not if we are smart about it, not if we plan this properly. Cole's eyes were intense now, focused entirely on her. The nearest Ranger outpost is in Austin. That is about 100 miles from here. If we can get there, if we can talk to them in person and explain the situation, they might be willing to set a trap. Use me as bait, you mean? If necessary, yes, but protected bait, with Rangers hidden and waiting, it could work, Eleanor. It was the first time he had used her first name, and something about hearing it in his low, earnest voice made her chest tighten. She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe that there could be an end to this nightmare, that she could stop running and start living again. But 3 years of fear and loss had taught her to be cautious, to trust no one, to expect the worst. Why do you care? She asked. You do not know me. This is not your fight. Cole was quiet for a moment, staring down into his coffee cup. Then he said, 5 years ago, my younger sister ran off with a man we all thought was charming and successful. Turned out he was a con man and a thief. He used her to get information about my family's ranch, about when we would be away, where we kept our valuables. One night he and his partners robbed us. My father tried to stop them and they shot him. He lived, but he was never the same after that. And my sister, she came back full of shame and guilt, blaming herself for everything. She could not forgive herself, could not move past it. 2 years later, she took her own life. Eleanor felt her breath catch. "Cole, I am so sorry." "The thing is," Cole continued, his voice rough with emotion, "she did not pull that trigger, but she might as well have because the guilt killed her just as surely as a bullet. And I swore after that, if I ever met someone in a similar situation, someone carrying guilt that was not theirs to carry, I would do whatever I could to help them. So when I saw you today running scared and I heard Frank Garrett's name, I knew I had to follow you. I knew I had to try." They sat in silence for a long while, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the occasional snort from one of the horses outside. Eleanor felt something shifting inside her, some hard shell that she had built around her heart beginning to crack. This man, this stranger, was offering her something she had not had in 3 years. Hope. "All right," she said finally. "We will go to Austin, we will talk to the Rangers. But if this goes wrong, if you get hurt because of me, I want you to know that I tried to warn you." Cole smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger and almost carefree. "Noted, now eat your beans before they get cold. We have a long ride ahead of us tomorrow." They ate in companionable silence, and afterward, Cole insisted that Eleanor take the cot while he bedded down on the floor with his saddle blanket. She protested, but he would not hear of it, and eventually she was too exhausted to argue. She lay down fully clothed, her pistol under her pillow, and listened to Cole's steady breathing as he settled in for the night. She expected to lie awake for hours, her mind churning with plans and worries, but the combination of exhaustion and the feeling of relative safety pulled her under almost immediately. For the first time in months, she slept deeply and dreamlessly. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the small window and she could smell coffee boiling and bacon frying. She sat up quickly, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. Cole was at the stove, his back to her, humming tunelessly as he cooked. "Good morning," he said without turning around. "I took the liberty of raiding the stores for some bacon. Hope you do not mind." "It smells wonderful," Eleanor admitted, standing and attempting to smooth her hopelessly wrinkled dress. She must look like something the cat dragged in, but Cole did not seem to notice or care. "There is water in the basin if you want to wash up. I already saw to the horses. Yours is looking much better this morning. I think another day of rest would be ideal, but under the circumstances, I think we should move out soon." Eleanor nodded, splashing water on her face and finger-combing her hair as best she could. When she turned back, Cole was dividing the bacon and some hardtack onto 2 tin plates. They ate quickly, both of them aware that they were racing against time. As they prepared to leave, Cole produced a map from his saddlebags and spread it out on the table. "We are here," he said, pointing to a spot west of Sweetwater. "Austin is here. The most direct route would be straight south, but that would take us through several towns, and if the Garretts are looking for you, they will be watching those towns. I think our best bet is to head southwest toward the hill country. It is rougher terrain, but more isolated. We can avoid the main trails and settlements. That will add days to our journey. Better days than a bullet," Cole said pragmatically. "I know this country pretty well. There are ranches and homesteads scattered throughout the hills. We can stop for supplies and rest without going into any large towns. If we are careful and keep moving, we should be able to reach Austin in about a week. A week of traveling alone with this man through isolated country. A week of dependence and proximity." Eleanor felt a flutter of something that might have been nervousness or might have been anticipation. She pushed the feeling aside and focused on the practical matters. "I have some money," she said. "Not much, but enough to pay for supplies and maybe lodging if we need it. Keep your money." "I have plenty, and you might need it later." Consider this my contribution to bringing the Garrett brothers to justice." They finished packing and saddled the horses, then set out under the already warming sun. Cole led the way, heading southwest across open prairie that gradually began to rise and break into hills covered with cedar and oak. It was beautiful country, wild and untamed, and under other circumstances, Eleanor might have enjoyed the journey. Instead, she spent most of the first day looking over her shoulder, expecting at any moment to see riders on the horizon. But the landscape remained empty except for the occasional deer or jackrabbit, and as the hours passed, she began to relax slightly. Cole seemed to sense her unease and kept up a steady stream of conversation, telling her about his work on the Double J Ranch, about the cattle drives he had been on, about the time he roped a bear by accident thinking it was a steer in the darkness. His stories were engaging and often funny, and despite herself, Eleanor found herself laughing at his descriptions of various ranch mishaps. "What about you?" Cole asked as they stopped to rest the horses near a small creek. "You said you were working as a seamstress in Sweetwater. Is that what you did before in Missouri?" Eleanor shook her head, kneeling by the creek to splash water on her face. "No, I was a schoolteacher. I loved it. The children, the books, helping young minds grow and learn. I always thought I would teach until I was old and gray." "You could do that again once this is over." "Maybe," Eleanor said, but her voice was doubtful. "I have been someone else for so long, I am not sure I remember how to be Eleanor Hartley anymore. Every town, I take a new name, invent a new history. After a while, the lies become easier than the truth." Cole was quiet, watching the water flow past. Then he said, "My full name is Cole Andrew Jameson. I am 28 years old. I was born on the Double J Ranch, and I have lived there my whole life except for 2 years when I went to Dallas to try city living. Hated every minute of it. Came home and swore I would never leave again. My favorite food is my mother's peach cobbler. My favorite time of day is dawn when everything is quiet and new. I am afraid of heights, which is ironic given that I spend half my life on horseback. And I have been searching for something my whole life without quite knowing what it was, until yesterday when I saw a dark-haired woman with fire in her eyes point a pistol at me without trembling." Eleanor stared at him, her heart suddenly beating very fast. "Cole, I am not saying this to make you uncomfortable," he continued, his eyes meeting hers directly. "I am saying it because I want you to know that you do not have to pretend with me. You do not have to be anyone other than who you are. Eleanor Hartley, schoolteacher from Missouri, who loves books and children and who has survived things that would have broken most people. That is who I see when I look at you, and that is enough." Eleanor felt tears prick at her eyes and she blinked them back fiercely. She could not remember the last time someone had seen her, really seen her, not the false personas she presented but the real person underneath. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. "I have been hiding for so long," she whispered. "I do not know if I remember how to be real." Cole stood and offered her his hand. "Then maybe this journey can be about more than just surviving. Maybe it can be about finding yourself again." She took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet, and for a moment they stood close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Then the moment passed and they returned to their horses, but something had shifted between them. Some invisible barrier had been crossed. They traveled for 3 more days through the hill country, following game trails and creek beds, avoiding the few settlements they encountered. Cole seemed to have an uncanny sense of direction, always knowing which way to go even when the landscape looked identical in all directions. At night, they made cold camps, not daring to light fires that might draw attention. They ate dried beef and hardtack and slept on opposite sides of their small campsites, always proper, always careful. But as the days passed, Eleanor found herself looking forward to their conversations, to the way Cole would point out interesting landmarks or wildlife, to the sound of his laughter when she made a dry observation about something. She was coming to trust him in a way she had not trusted anyone in years, and that trust was both comforting and frightening. On the fourth night, they sheltered in a small cave as a thunderstorm rolled through, the rain coming down in sheets and lightning illuminating the sky in brilliant white flashes. They sat near the entrance watching the storm, and Cole told her about his family, about his parents who still ran the Double J, about his older brother who was getting married in the fall. "They will love you," he said suddenly. Eleanor blinked. "What, my family?" "When they meet you, they will love you, my mother especially. She has been after me for years to find a good woman and settle down." "Cole, I do not think, that is, we are not." Eleanor stumbled over her words, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "I know we are not anything yet," Cole said quietly. "But I would like us to be. Once this is over, once you are safe, I would like to court you properly. Take you to dinner, introduce you to my family, maybe take you dancing if there is a social. I want to know everything about you, Eleanor. Your favorite color, your favorite book, what makes you laugh, what makes you cry. I want to build a life with you if you will let me." Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. "You barely know me. I know enough. I know you are brave and strong and stubborn. I know you care deeply about people, so much that you would rather run forever than let someone else get hurt because of you. I know that when you laugh, really laugh, it sounds like music. I know that I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. What if the Rangers cannot help us? What if the Garretts find me before we reach Austin? What if I bring nothing but trouble and death into your life?" Cole reached over and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "Then we will face it together. But I have a feeling, Eleanor, a strong feeling that our luck is about to change. That this time, things are going to work out. Call it faith or foolishness, but I believe it." Eleanor wanted to believe it too. She wanted it so badly it hurt. For 3 years she had been alone, isolated by necessity and fear. Now this man was offering her not just protection but partnership, not just safety but love. It seemed too good to be true, and her instinct was to pull away, to protect her heart the way she had protected her life. But as she sat there in the cave with the storm raging outside and Cole's hand warm in hers, she made a decision. She decided to be brave one more time, not the desperate bravery of survival but the quiet bravery of hope. "My favorite color is blue," she said softly. "The deep blue of the sky just after sunset. My favorite book is Jane Eyre because Jane refuses to compromise herself even when it would be easier. I laugh at silly things, like kittens chasing their tails or the way old men grumble about the weather. And I cry at injustice, at cruelty, at the thought of all the time I have wasted hiding instead of living." Cole's smile was radiant. "That is a start." They sat together watching the storm until it passed, and when they finally lay down to sleep, Eleanor felt something she had not felt in 3 long years: contentment. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the world washed clean by the rain. They broke camp early and continued south, the terrain becoming more rugged as they climbed higher into the hills. Around midday, they spotted smoke rising from behind a ridge and approached cautiously, unsure if it signaled danger or opportunity. What they found was a small homestead, a rough cabin with a barn and a few scraggly chickens pecking in the yard. A woman was hanging laundry on a line, and when she saw them approach, she called out without fear, "Howdy, travelers. You are welcome to water your horses at the trough." She was in her 50s, weather-worn but strong-looking, with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her dress was patched and faded but clean, and her eyes were sharp and assessing as they looked Eleanor and Cole over. "Much obliged, ma'am," Cole said, tipping his hat. "We are on our way to Austin and would be grateful for any water you can spare." "Austin? That is still a good ways off. You folks running from something or running to something?" Eleanor stiffened, but Cole answered smoothly. "A bit of both, I suppose." "Looking to meet with the Rangers about a legal matter." The woman's expression changed, becoming more guarded. "Rangers, hum? Well, I suppose there is no harm in that. Name is Martha Pickens. My husband is inside, sick with a fever. Been 3 days now and he is not improving. You would not happen to know anything about medicine, would you? Eleanor dismounted immediately. I am not a doctor, but I have some knowledge of healing. May I see him? Martha looked surprised but grateful. Bless you, dear. Come inside. Your man can see to the horses. Inside the cabin, a man lay on a rough bed, his face flushed with fever and his breathing labored. Eleanor knelt beside him and placed her hand on his forehead, feeling the intense heat radiating from his skin. She pulled back the blanket and examined him carefully, noting the swelling and redness on his left leg. How did he get this injury? She asked Martha. Kicked by a mule 5 days ago, did not seem serious at the time, just a bad bruise. But then it started swelling and the fever came on. Eleanor had seen infections like this before. Her mother had been a midwife and healer, and Eleanor had learned much from her before her death. The wound has become infected. We need to bring down the fever and clean the injury. Do you have any whiskey? A little, for medicinal purposes. Bring it, along with clean cloths and boiling water. We need to move quickly. For the next 2 hours, Eleanor worked with focused intensity, cleaning the wound, applying hot compresses, and getting Mr. Pickens to swallow small amounts of willow bark tea to reduce the fever. Cole and Martha helped her, following her instructions without question. By the time the sun was beginning to set, the old man's fever had broken and he was resting more comfortably. You saved his life, Martha said, gripping Eleanor's hands. I do not know how to thank you. No thanks needed. I am glad I could help. Nonsense. You stay here tonight. I will not hear of you traveling after dark, not after what you have done for us. And I will pack you provisions for your journey. It is the least I can do. That night, Eleanor and Cole slept in the barn while Martha tended to her husband in the cabin. They lay in the hayloft, surrounded by the sweet smell of dried grass and the quiet sounds of the horses below. You were amazing today, Cole said into the darkness. The way you knew exactly what to do, the way you took charge, that was your calling, was it not? Helping people, teaching them, healing them. I suppose it was, Eleanor said, but that life seems very far away now. It does not have to be. Once we reach Austin, once this is settled, you could have that life again. Maybe not teaching school, but there are always people who need help, who need healing. You have a gift, Eleanor. My mother used to say that gifts are meant to be shared, not hidden. But I have been hiding for so long, I forgot what it felt like to use my gifts for something good. Well, now you remember, and that is worth something. They left the Pickens homestead early the next morning, their saddlebags stuffed with dried meat, cornbread, and fresh vegetables from Martha's garden. Mr. Pickens was sitting up and taking broth, and Martha had tears in her eyes as she thanked them again. If you ever find yourself back this way, she said to Eleanor, you have a home here. Remember that. As they rode away, Eleanor felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the morning sun. She had helped someone, she had made a difference, and it felt good. 2 days later, they finally reached the outskirts of Austin. It was a bustling city by Texas standards, with wide streets, brick buildings, and the dome of the Capitol building rising above it all. Eleanor felt a mixture of relief and trepidation as they rode through the streets. This was it. This was where they would either find the help they needed or discover that their journey had been for nothing. Cole led them directly to the Texas Rangers' headquarters, a sturdy building near the center of town. They tied their horses and went inside where a young ranger sat at a desk, writing in a ledger. "Help you folks?" he asked, looking up. "We need to speak with whoever is in charge," Cole said. "It is urgent. It concerns Frank and Lucas Garrett." The young ranger's demeanor changed immediately. He stood up quickly. "Wait here." He disappeared through a door and returned a moment later with an older man, tall and grizzled with a thick mustache and eyes that missed nothing. He wore the distinctive badge of a Texas Ranger captain. "I am Captain Tom Brennan," he said. "You have information about the Garrett brothers?" Eleanor felt her heart sink. "Brennan. Like Horace Brennan, the bank president who had been executed for his crimes. Are you related to Horace Brennan of Jefferson City, Missouri?" she asked. The captain's expression darkened. He was my cousin. Brought shame on our entire family with his crimes. I want nothing more than to see his partners brought to justice. Now, what do you know about Frank and Lucas Garrett? Eleanor took a deep breath and told her story from beginning to end, leaving nothing out. Captain Brennan listened intently, occasionally asking questions or making notes. When she finished, he sat back and studied them both. I believe you, Miss Hartley. We have been tracking the Garretts for years, but they are like smoke. Every time we get close, they slip away. But if what you say is true, if they have been hunting you all this time, then you are the bait we need to finally catch them. That is what we were hoping you would say, Cole interjected. But we want to make sure Eleanor is protected. These men are dangerous and determined. I understand your concern, Mr. Jameson, and I can assure you that we will take every precaution. Here is what I propose. We spread the word that Miss Hartley has been spotted in Austin. We make it public, let it get into the newspapers. The Garretts will hear about it and they will come. But when they do, we will be waiting. I will have a dozen rangers positioned throughout the city watching her every move. They will not get within 100 yards of her. And if something goes wrong, Eleanor asked, if they are smarter than you think, then I will personally put myself between you and them, Captain Brennan said firmly. I take my responsibility seriously, Miss Hartley. You testified against my cousin, helped expose his corruption. You did the right thing and you should not have had to suffer for it. Let me help you end this. Eleanor looked at Cole, who nodded encouragingly. Then she turned back to the captain. All right. What do we need to do? Over the next few days, Captain Brennan put his plan into action. He arranged for Eleanor to stay at a boarding house near the center of town, one that could be easily watched from multiple angles. He assigned rangers to keep her under constant surveillance, though they stayed hidden so as not to spook the Garretts. And he made sure that Eleanor's presence in Austin was noted in the local newspaper. A small item mentioning that Miss Eleanor Hartley of Jefferson City, Missouri, was visiting Austin and staying at Mrs. Anderson's boarding house. Cole stayed at a hotel nearby, but he visited Eleanor every day, sometimes twice. They would sit in the boarding house parlor under the watchful eye of Mrs. Anderson, a formidable woman who had been apprised of the situation and had agreed to help. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing, getting to know each other in a way that the urgency of their journey had not quite allowed. Eleanor learned that Cole had always wanted to have a ranch of his own, not just work on his family's spread. He dreamed of raising cattle and horses, of building something that would last for generations. He loved to read, especially poetry, though he would never admit that to the other cowboys. He had a scar on his left shoulder from a rattlesnake bite when he was 16, and he was tone deaf but loved to sing anyway. Cole learned that Eleanor had wanted to travel before her life fell apart, that she had dreamed of seeing the ocean and the mountains. She loved thunderstorms and hated the heat. She could recite entire passages of Shakespeare from memory, and she had a talent for drawing, though she had not picked up a pencil in years. She was afraid of being forgotten, of dying without leaving any mark on the world. You could never be forgotten, Cole told her. You are too vivid, too alive. You have already left your mark on me, Eleanor. Whatever happens, I will never forget you. 4 days passed, then 5. Captain Brennan came by each evening to check on her, to reassure her that his men were vigilant and ready. But as the days stretched on with no sign of the Garretts, Eleanor began to wonder if perhaps they had given up, if perhaps she was finally free. On the 6th day, Cole arrived at the boarding house earlier than usual, looking troubled. There was a stranger at the hotel this morning, he said quietly, mindful of Mrs. Anderson bustling about nearby. He was asking questions about you, about where you were staying, about whether you were alone. The desk clerk played dumb, but I do not like it. Eleanor felt the familiar cold fear settle in her stomach. Did you tell Captain Brennan? I sent word. He is increasing the watch. But Eleanor, I think it is time we consider what comes after. Assuming this plan works, assuming they catch the Garretts, what will you do? Where will you go? I have not let myself think that far ahead, Eleanor admitted. For so long, survival has been the only goal. The idea of actually having a future seems impossible. Cole took her hand, glancing around to make sure Mrs. Anderson was not looking. "Come home with me," he said urgently. "To the Double J, meet my family, see the ranch. Stay as long as you like, and when you are ready, let me court you properly. Let me show you what life could be like without fear." "Cole, that is a beautiful dream, but it is not a dream. It is an offer, a real offer. I have already written to my parents about you. They are eager to meet the woman who has captured my heart so completely." Eleanor felt tears welling up. "Your heart, my heart," Cole confirmed. "I know it has only been a week, and I know we have been through extraordinary circumstances, but Eleanor, I am in love with you. I think I have been since the moment you pointed that pistol at me and told me to keep my distance. You are everything I have been searching for, even when I did not know I was searching." "I have been hiding mine," Eleanor whispered, the words coming from somewhere deep inside her. "My whole life, I have been hiding my heart, protecting it, keeping it locked away where it could not be hurt. But you, Cole Jameson, you have found it anyway." Cole's eyes were shining. "Does that mean—" "It means I love you too. I am terrified and overwhelmed, and I do not know how this is going to work, but I love you." He leaned forward, and for a moment, Eleanor thought he was going to kiss her right there in Mrs. Anderson's parlor. But instead, he pressed his forehead against hers, his breath warm against her lips. "After this is over," he murmured, "I am going to kiss you properly. But for now, this will have to do." They stayed like that for a long moment, two people who had found each other against all odds, preparing to face whatever came next together. The attack came that night. Eleanor was in her room preparing for bed when she heard the sound of breaking glass from downstairs. Then a shout, a gunshot, and the unmistakable sound of men fighting. She grabbed her pistol and pressed herself against the wall beside her door, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. The sound of doors being kicked open, one after another. They were checking each room, searching for her. Eleanor looked around frantically for another way out, but her window overlooked a two-story drop onto cobblestones. She would break her neck. The door to her room exploded inward, and a man stood silhouetted in the doorway. Even in the dim light, she recognized Frank Garrett's cruel features. He smiled when he saw her. "There you are, Miss Hartley. You have led us on quite a chase." "Stay back," Eleanor said, raising her pistol with shaking hands. "You are not going to shoot me. If you were capable of that, you would have done it 3 years ago when you had the chance." He stepped into the room and Eleanor pulled the trigger. The shot went wild, missing him by a foot and shattering the mirror behind him. Before she could fire again, Garrett lunged forward and knocked the gun from her hand. His fingers closed around her throat, squeezing, and Eleanor clawed at his hands desperately. "You got my brother hanged," Garrett hissed, his face inches from hers. "You destroyed everything we built. Now you are going to pay." Black spots danced in Eleanor's vision. She could not breathe, could not think. This was it. After 3 years of running, this was how it would end. Then suddenly the pressure was gone. Garrett was pulled backward by a powerful force and Eleanor collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Through her watering eyes, she saw Cole grappling with Garrett, the two men crashing into the furniture. "Eleanor, go," Cole shouted, but she could not move, could not make her legs work. More footsteps on the stairs, and Captain Brennan burst into the room with 3 other Rangers. They descended on Garrett, who fought like a wild animal, but the numbers were against him. Within moments, he was subdued and handcuffed, still cursing and threatening. "Where is Lucas?" Captain Brennan demanded. "Dead," one of the Rangers called from the hallway. "He is down at the bottom of the stairs. Looks like Mrs. Anderson got him with a shotgun." "That woman is a national treasure," Brennan muttered. He turned to Eleanor, who was still slumped against the wall. "Are you all right, Miss Hartley?" Eleanor nodded weakly. Cole was immediately at her side, helping her to her feet, his hands gentle as he examined her throat. "You are going to have some bruising, but you are all right. You are all right now." "Is it over?" Eleanor whispered. "Is it really over?" "It is over," Captain Brennan confirmed. Frank Garrett will hang for his crimes just like his brother did. You are finally free, Miss Hartley. Free." The word seemed impossible, too big to comprehend. Eleanor had been running for so long that she did not know what freedom felt like anymore. But as she stood there in Cole's arms, surrounded by rangers and justice, she began to believe it might be real. Frank Garrett was taken away, still shouting threats and curses. Mrs. Anderson appeared with tea and sympathy, completely unfazed by the dead body in her hallway or the damage to her property. "I have seen worse," she said briskly. "Now drink this, dear, it will help with the shock." That night, Eleanor stayed in a different room while the mess was cleaned up and statements were taken. Cole refused to leave her side, sleeping in a chair by her bed like a guardian angel. When Eleanor woke from nightmares, gasping and disoriented, he was there to hold her hand and remind her that she was safe. The next day, Captain Brennan informed them that all charges against Eleanor had been cleared, that she was no longer under any threat from the Garretts or anyone associated with them. "You are free to go wherever you want, Miss Hartley," he said. "And you have the gratitude of the state of Texas and the Rangers. Thank you, Captain, for everything. Just doing my job, but I will say you are a brave woman, Miss Hartley. It takes courage to keep fighting for as long as you did. I hope you find the peace you deserve." Later that day, Cole took Eleanor for a walk along the Colorado River that ran through Austin. The water sparkled in the afternoon sun, and for the first time in years, Eleanor felt like she could breathe freely. "So," Cole said, taking her hand as they walked. "Now that this is over, now that you are safe, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go?" Eleanor was quiet for a moment, watching a hawk circle overhead. Then she said, "You asked me to come home with you, to the Double J. Does that offer still stand?" Cole's face broke into a brilliant smile. "It stands. It will always stand." "Then that is what I want. I want to meet your family and see your ranch. I want to wake up every morning without fear. I want to find out who Eleanor Hartley is when she is not running. And I want to do all of that with you if you will have me." Cole stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Eleanor Hartley, I have been searching for you my whole life, even when I did not know what I was looking for. You are brave and strong and beautiful, and I would be honored to spend the rest of my life with you. Not just courting you, but marrying you, building a life with you, growing old with you." "Is that a proposal, Mr. Jameson?" Eleanor asked, her heart soaring. "It is if you will have me." "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a week, but I know my own heart. I love you, Eleanor. Will you marry me?" Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." Cole let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around until they were both laughing and dizzy. Then he set her down gently and cupped her face in his hands. "I promised you a proper kiss once this was over," he said. "Then you had better keep that promise." He kissed her there by the river, with the sun shining down and the sound of water flowing past, and it was everything Eleanor had dreamed of and more. It was gentle and fierce all at once, a promise and a celebration, an ending and a beginning. When they finally pulled apart, Eleanor rested her head against Cole's chest and listened to the steady beating of his heart. "I was so afraid," she whispered. "I was so afraid for so long. I know, but you do not have to be afraid anymore. I am here and I am not going anywhere." They stayed by the river until the sun began to set, making plans and dreaming dreams. They would go to the Double J, and Cole would introduce Eleanor to his family. They would be married in the fall, a simple ceremony with friends and family. And eventually, Cole would buy land of his own and they would build a ranch together, a place where Eleanor could teach the local children and Cole could raise horses. But all of that was in the future. For now, they simply stood together, two people who had found each other in the wilderness, who had faced danger and emerged victorious, who had learned that sometimes the things you are searching for are found in the most unexpected places. 2 weeks later, they rode up to the Double J Ranch as the sun was setting. It was a beautiful spread with a large main house, several barns and corrals full of horses. As they approached, a woman came out onto the porch, shading her eyes against the setting sun. Cole. She cried, and then she was running toward them, her skirts hiked up, her face alight with joy. Cole dismounted and caught his mother in a bear hug, lifting her off the ground. "Mama, I have missed you." "And I have missed you, you rascal. Your father was about to send a search party." She pulled back and looked at Eleanor with warm brown eyes so like Cole's. "And you must be Eleanor. Cole has written such beautiful things about you." Eleanor dismounted, suddenly nervous, but Cole's mother, Mary Jameson, simply pulled her into a warm embrace. "Welcome home, dear, welcome home." Cole's father appeared next, a tall man with gray hair and a weathered face. He shook Eleanor's hand with a firm grip and a kind smile. "Any woman brave enough to take on my son is all right by me," he said. They went inside where a feast had been prepared in anticipation of their arrival. The dining room was filled with people: Cole's brother Jack and his fiancée Sarah, several ranch hands, and neighbors who had heard that Cole was bringing home a bride. They were welcomed with open arms, with questions and laughter and warmth. As Eleanor sat at that table, surrounded by people who were ready to accept her as family, she felt something inside her finally let go. The fear, the tension, the constant vigilance that had defined her existence for 3 years, it all drained away, leaving her feeling lighter than air. After dinner, Cole took her out to the porch where they could watch the stars emerge in the darkening sky. "What do you think?" he asked. "Can you be happy here?" Eleanor leaned against him, feeling his arm come around her shoulders. "I think I can be happy anywhere as long as I am with you." "But yes, I think I could be very happy here." "Good. Because I meant what I said about building a life together. I want everything with you, Eleanor. Marriage, children, a ranch of our own someday. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to see you teaching the local children and healing the sick. I want to watch you bloom without fear holding you back." "I want all of that too," Eleanor said. "But mostly, I just want you. You saved me, Cole, not just from the Garretts, but from myself. You showed me that it is possible to trust again, to love again, to hope again." "You saved yourself," Cole corrected gently. "I just provided the opportunity. You are the strongest person I have ever met, Eleanor. Never forget that." They stood together under the stars, planning their future and reveling in their present. The past was finally behind them, and the future stretched out bright and full of possibility. The wedding took place in late September, just as Cole had promised. It was held at the small church in the nearest town, with half the county in attendance. Eleanor wore a dress of pale blue silk that she and Mary had made together, and she carried wildflowers that Cole had picked that morning. When she walked down the aisle and saw Cole waiting for her at the altar, his face full of love and wonder, she knew that every moment of fear and pain had been worth it to arrive at this moment. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, but Eleanor barely heard the words. She was too focused on Cole, on the way he was looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. When it came time for the vows, Cole took her hands and spoke from the heart. "Eleanor, from the moment I met you, I knew you were special. You were running and I was searching, and somehow we found each other. You have made me believe in fate and destiny and love at first sight. I promise to spend the rest of my life making you happy, keeping you safe, and reminding you every day how loved you are." Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face as she spoke her own vows. "Cole, you gave me back my life. You showed me that I did not have to hide anymore, that I could be myself without fear. You have been my protector, my partner, and my best friend. I promise to love you with all my heart, to stand beside you in good times and bad, and to never stop being grateful that you followed me into the wilderness that day." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed her with a tenderness that made Eleanor's knees weak. The church erupted in applause and cheers, and they walked back down the aisle together as man and wife, ready to face whatever the future held. The celebration that followed was joyous and boisterous, with dancing and feasting that lasted well into the night. Eleanor found herself swept up in the festivities. dancing with Cole and his father and brother, talking with the local women who were eager to welcome her into their community, and feeling more at home than she had in years. As the evening wound down and the guests began to depart, Cole's mother pulled Eleanor aside. "I want you to know," Mary said, her eyes bright with emotion, "that you are a daughter to me now, not just because you married my son, but because of who you are. Cole told me what you have been through, and I am in awe of your strength. This family is yours now, Eleanor. You never have to be alone again." "Thank you," Eleanor whispered, embracing her mother-in-law. "Thank you for raising such an incredible man. Thank you for welcoming me." "Thank you for everything." Cole appeared and gently extracted Eleanor from his mother's embrace. "Time to go, Mrs. Jameson," he said with a grin. "We have a wedding night to attend to." They had prepared a small cabin on the ranch property for their first home, a cozy two-room structure that Cole and his brother had fixed up over the past few weeks. It had a fireplace, a comfortable bed, a small kitchen area, and windows that looked out over the rolling hills of the ranch. Inside, Cole lit several lanterns, filling the room with a warm golden glow. He turned to Eleanor and pulled her gently into his arms. "Hello, wife," he said softly. "Hello, husband," Eleanor replied, her heart full to bursting. They kissed, and this time there was no urgency, no fear, no need to hold back. They had all the time in the world. Cole was patient and tender, taking his time to show Eleanor exactly how loved she was, and Eleanor gave herself to him freely, joyfully, without reservation. Later, as they lay tangled together in the big bed, Eleanor traced patterns on Cole's chest and marveled at how her life had changed. "I keep expecting to wake up," she murmured. "I keep thinking this is all a dream." "It is not a dream," Cole assured her, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "This is real. We are real, and I plan to spend every day proving it to you." The months that followed were filled with hard work and simple joys. Eleanor started teaching a small group of local children who gathered at the ranch twice a week for lessons. She also began helping the local midwife, using the healing knowledge her mother had taught her to tend to the sick and injured. Word spread quickly about her skills, and soon people were coming from miles around seeking her help. Cole worked long hours on the ranch, but he always made time for Eleanor. They would take evening rides together, exploring the property and making plans for the future. They talked about buying land of their own, about building a larger house, about the children they hoped to have. Their first winter together was cold and harsh, but Eleanor found comfort in the cozy cabin and in Cole's warm embrace. They spent the long evenings reading together by the fire, playing cards and talking about everything and nothing. It was during one of those evenings that Eleanor realized she had not thought about the Garretts or her past in weeks. The fear that had been her constant companion for so long had finally released its grip. Spring came with a burst of wildflowers and new life, and with it came news that made Eleanor's heart sing. She was pregnant. Cole was overjoyed, immediately becoming protective and fussy, insisting that she rest more and not work so hard. Eleanor found his concern endearing even when it was excessive. "I am not fragile," she reminded him one afternoon as he insisted on carrying a basket of laundry for her. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "Yes, but you are having my baby," Cole said. "And that makes you special." Their son was born in November of 1879 during an early snowstorm. The birth was long and difficult, but Eleanor was strong and Mary was there to help, along with the midwife Eleanor had been working with. When Cole was finally allowed to come in and see his wife and new son, he had tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," he whispered, carefully cradling the tiny bundle. "He looks just like you. He has your eyes," Eleanor said, exhausted but happy. "What should we name him?" Cole thought for a moment. "Thomas," he said softly, "after your brother, so that he is not forgotten." Eleanor felt fresh tears spring to her eyes. "Thomas Cole Jameson," she said. "I think that is perfect." Little Thomas was a healthy, happy baby who quickly became the center of their world. Cole was a devoted father, often spending his evenings playing with the baby or singing him to sleep with his terrible but enthusiastic voice. Eleanor found herself falling in love with Cole all over again as she watched him with their son. As Thomas grew, so did their family. 2 years later, they had a daughter they named Rose, and 2 years after that, another son they called James. The small cabin became too cramped, so with money saved from Cole's work and Eleanor's teaching and healing, they bought 200 acres adjacent to the Double J and built a proper house. It was not a grand house by any means, but it was theirs. It had a large kitchen where Eleanor could prepare meals and teach Rose to cook, a parlor where they could gather as a family, and bedrooms enough for each child to have their own space. Cole built Eleanor a small room off the kitchen where she could keep her medical supplies and treat patients in private. The years passed quickly, marked by birthdays and holidays, by cattle drives and harvest seasons, by the small triumphs and challenges of daily life. Eleanor's teaching expanded until she had a proper schoolroom built on their property, where she taught not just her own children but more than 20 students from surrounding ranches and homesteads. Cole proved to be a talented rancher, breeding fine horses that were sought after throughout Texas. The ranch prospered, allowing them to hire help and to contribute to the local community. They helped build a church in town, donated money to establish a lending library, and opened their home to anyone in need. Through it all, their love for each other only deepened. They still took evening rides together when time allowed, still sat up talking late into the night, still looked at each other with the wonder of people who could not quite believe their good fortune. One evening, when they had been married for nearly 10 years, they sat on the porch of their house watching the sun set over the hills. Their children were inside, Thomas helping Rose with her arithmetic while James played with wooden horses Cole had carved for him. "Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you had not followed me that day?" Eleanor asked, leaning her head on Cole's shoulder. "Sometimes," Cole admitted, "but not with any regret. I think I was always meant to follow you, Eleanor. I think I was always meant to find you." "I told you that day that I had been hiding my whole life," Eleanor said quietly, "and it was true. I had been hiding from pain, from loss, from fear, but I was also hiding from joy, from love, from all the good things life had to offer. You taught me to stop hiding. You taught me to be brave enough to live." Cole pulled her closer. "And you taught me what I was searching for. I did not know all those years what was missing from my life, but the moment I saw you, I knew it was you. It was always you." They sat together as the stars began to emerge, as they had done countless times before, and as they would do countless times in the years to come. The past was truly behind them now, nothing but a distant memory. Frank Garrett had been hanged for his crimes and justice had finally been served. Eleanor's name had been cleared, her reputation restored. But more than that, Eleanor had found something she never knew she was looking for. She had found home. Not just a place, but a feeling. The feeling of safety, of belonging, of being loved completely and without reservation. She had found it in Cole, in their children, in the community they had built together. "I love you," she whispered into the gathering darkness. "I love you too," Cole replied. "Today, tomorrow, and every day after that, for as long as we both shall live," and he kept that promise. Through the years that followed, through joys and sorrows, through challenges and triumphs, Cole loved Eleanor with a devotion that never wavered. They watched their children grow into fine adults, Thomas becoming a doctor, Rose a teacher like her mother, and James taking over the management of the ranch. They grew old together, their hair turning gray, their bodies moving slower, but their love remaining as strong as ever. They sat together on their porch in the evenings, holding hands and watching the sun set, remembering the day they met and marveling at all that had come from that chance encounter. When Eleanor was 62 years old, Cole 70, they celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary with a grand party attended by children, grandchildren, and friends from all over Texas. As Eleanor looked around at the celebration, at the life they had built together, she felt a profound sense of gratitude and peace. That night, as they prepared for bed, Cole took her hands just as he had on their wedding day. "Eleanor Jameson," he said softly. "I have spent 40 years searching for new ways to love you, and I plan to spend however many years I have left continuing that search. And I will spend those years letting you find me," Eleanor replied with a smile, "though I promise not to hide anymore." They laughed together, and Cole pulled her into his arms. "Do you remember what I told you that first night in the Line Shack, about how I felt I had been searching for something my whole life without knowing what it was?" "I remember. I still feel that way sometimes. Like I am still searching, still looking for something just out of reach. But then I look at you and I realize the truth. I am not searching anymore. I found what I was looking for 40 years ago when a dark-haired woman pointed a pistol at me and told me to keep my distance. I have been found ever since." Eleanor felt tears prick at her eyes, "and I have been seen. After so many years of hiding, you saw me, the real me, and you loved what you saw. I did, I do, I always will." They stood together in the lamplight of their bedroom. Two people who had traveled a long and difficult road to find each other, who had faced death and danger and emerged victorious, who had built a life and a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. They lived for many more years after that, surrounded by family and love. When Cole passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, Eleanor held his hand and told him one more time how much she loved him, how grateful she was that he had followed her into the wilderness all those years ago. She lived for 2 more years without him, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, still teaching, still healing, still making a difference in the lives of everyone she met. And when her time came, she went peacefully, with a smile on her face and the knowledge that she had lived a full and meaningful life. On her headstone, next to Cole's, her children had engraved the words that had defined her journey. She stopped hiding and found love. And so the story of Eleanor and Cole ended where it had begun, with two people who had been searching and hiding, who had found each other against all odds, and who had built a love that lasted not just a lifetime but for generations. Their children told their story to their children, who told it to their children, until it became legend. It became a story about courage and love, about second chances and new beginnings. It became a story about how sometimes the things we are running from lead us exactly where we need to be, and how sometimes the things we are searching for have been right in front of us all along. But most of all, it became a story about two people who said the right words at the right time. A cowboy who said, "I have been searching for you my whole life," and a woman who whispered back, "I have been hiding mine." And in those words they found each other, found themselves, and found the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. The end.